What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode, a matinee episode of the Planet Soccer Podcast. Of course, y'all don't know when Dylan and I record these, but we're hitting the ground running Monday at lunch. So, Dylan, how is everything going for you?
Good. I will be completely honest. Did not watch much soccer this weekend. I was in a wedding, so Saturday was pretty booked.
Yeah.
Sunday I went golfing in Michigan in February. I was taking that opportunity to
Was the
enjoy
course
that.
cleared? Was it? Could you see green? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It was. I mean, it was 50 yesterday, 50
okay.
and sunny. So it was great to get out there. So I watched minimal soccer. I watched the first half of Newcastle, and then I had wedding duties to attend to, and then I watched the first half of Man United, and that is all of the soccer I watched all weekend. So bear with me as I
It was
stumble through.
It was a pretty eventful weekend, honestly.
I missed a lot.
Yeah, I mean, not so good for you guys, but pretty eventful weekend nonetheless. All right, so our viewership analytics. Most people are probably done watching by now. Now we're gonna mix it up, try to do things a little differently in order to make the beginnings of our episode a little more interesting. Best thing I saw this week. We'll start with that. See if that improves anything. Maybe we get a little more engagement. The thing that I saw this week, Nottingham Forest and City played. And, you know, you've got a team recently relegated and you've got Man City. A lot of people probably don't know that Nottingham Forest have actually won a European Cup before. Manchester City has not. So, got it on my phone here. There was a chant off, if you will, back and forth between the Forest fans singing Champions of Europe, you'll never sing that. City fans responding, Champions of Europe, you weren't even born. And then Forest singing, Champions of Europe, you won't be alive. That's pretty impressive banter right there back and forth, I think.
I don't think that gets enough credit for like the casual fans or like people know chants and stuff in Europe are much different than American sports, but like the thinking on the toes, it's not always all pre-planned. It's pretty phenomenal, especially normally the away end is right on top of the action, like in a corner or at an end. So right bordered up next to the diehard home fans, and so getting that good back and forth banter is kind of fun.
I don't think that's a scripted thing that they do every game. I think that was on the fly. So
that
pretty
one
funny.
Was completely on the fly, which is awesome. For me, as I said, watched pretty minimal games. Was pretty much not on my phone this weekend, so it's kind of tough for me. But I, unfortunately, begrudgingly, am gonna have to say Marcus Rashford was the best thing I saw this weekend because the dude just won't stop. He's the best striker in the world right this minute, in my opinion. And he's just unstoppable right now. And we get to face him next weekend in a cup final. So,
it's a pretty special thing when you get to watch athletes that have peak confidence, because you normally get the best out of that athlete whenever they're at their most confident. And I would say Marcus Rashford certainly is right now. We'll talk about him a little later. This is a Premier League. We don't really do recaps anymore. Premier League check-in, State of the Union address for the Premier League, if you will. Excuse me. Having a lunchtime beer, and it gave me a little burp there. Let's start with the title race, because it's, in a year that, it looked like, all right, Arsenal might run away. Well, in a year where we're like, okay, City, Liverpool, and then Spurs, maybe. Liverpool is gaining ground, but they're certainly not in the title race. They're getting back into the European top four. But Arsenal kind of took the league by the balls in the beginning. It looked like they were running away from it. Over the past 3 weeks or so, they really haven't been. It's really kind of their steam has kind of settled a little bit, and City's gotten back into it, but then City loses to Forest. Lo and behold, Man United's kind of creeped up in there. So it feels like a 3-horse race right now, with probably the team trending up the most being the team in third. So once again, it looks like it's going to be really interesting into the season. We're kind of on that. I don't know if we've entered the final third of the season yet, but we're getting there. What are your thoughts on the title race? We got to see City and Arsenal finally play each other, and it looked like a pretty comprehensive win from City. But What do you kind of think about this race in general?
Yeah, I think if I was Arsenal a month ago, I would have felt really comfortable. I think I even said that on the show. They were just absolutely firing on all cylinders. City was reeling. Yeah. United looked far enough away that they wouldn't really be a threat. But when you look at the last 5 for Arsenal, they have only 2 wins in their last 5, and that's just not something we had seen from them in the first 4 months of the season. So I do think it's going to get real interesting and really sticky. I think Arsenal did a good job in the window, in my opinion, without breaking the bank, but we'll see if it's enough to hold off a roster like City or a team like United who's firing on all cylinders. Yep. Both have only dropped 1 in their last 5. United may have won 4 of their last 5 even. They may have had a draw in there. I can't remember. But both City and United are absolutely have righted the ship from different points of the season. We saw United struggle a lot at the beginning of the season. City kind of struggled in the middle. But both seem to have figured it out. Saying that, Man City then went out and drew Forest after looking dominant against Arsenal. Yeah. So it's like I think City has kind of found it again, but then they put out probably a pretty dull performance. I didn't watch that match, so I can't really speak to the specifics of it. But regardless of how the game flow went, that's a game you have to walk away with 3 points if you're competing for a title. So. Only 2 points separating at the top right now feels crazy after seeing how large of a lead they had 2-3 weeks ago. Yeah. For me, I think United's the team I'd be more worried about if I were Arsenal right now, just because of how well they're playing and how informed really their whole roster is. So it'll be interesting though. Both of them not playing Champions League, I think could be helpful down the stretch. Not that they don't want to win Europa, not that they're going to just throw away Europa games, but those games undoubtedly are a little bit easier competition. So you may be able to get guys off in the 70th where a Champions League.
A little bit easier competition as Man United just went to Camp Nou to play Barcelona. But I get what you mean.
If they advance, though, they're not playing Barcelona's throughout the whole thing like you would in the Champions League if you advance. Yeah. So it has the potential to allow them to rest up some of their guys, get them off a little early, and really focus on league. Where City, Champions League is kind of the one thing they've been missing in this run of form, so they will go all in on it. So that's just another interesting wrinkle about that top bunch there. But after those 3, I don't want to say it's over after those 3 because of the run United just went on. I just don't see Spurs or Newcastle being able to sustain a kind of run like we've seen United go on based off what we've seen from both teams this year.
Yeah. Arsenal with the points and the game in hand. I don't know if I've actually said this on the pod. I'll always take the points over the game in hand. I learned that last year when you guys took down Arsenal with their game in hand, although it didn't end up mattering. So Arsenal sitting with 54 points, 23 matches played. Man City with 52, 24 matches played. And United 49 after 24 matches played. And then we move to Tottenham and Newcastle, who kind of feel like, I look at it, they feel like the table rivals right now for that 4th spot. I don't imagine Fulham actually pushes for it, but
I was going to say, we can't discount Fulham right now.
I'm going to, just because, Tottenham's 2-0 against them. I just don't see them beating the teams they need to jump into top 4. They've done a very good job of beating everybody below them. They're going to take care, they took care of business against Brighton twice this year, but I think Liverpool will climb back into it, unfortunately. I think if they win, they've got 2 games in hand over Spurs, and if they win both of them, it'll put them even with y'all, 41 points. So it's pretty tight for that 4th spot. I'm going to consider just Tottenham and Newcastle there for a second, and Newcastle has a serious goal scoring problem. A big time goal scoring problem. Haven't scored more than 1 goal in a Premier League game since Boxing Day. Now, luckily, until this weekend, you hadn't given up more than 1 goal in a game. But Liverpool did methodically take y'all down 2-0. You say you watched the first half of that game?
Yeah.
How do you fix this issue? If Miguel Almiron's not going to give you 8 goals in the second half of the season,
you get Bruno back.
But he hasn't been back or he hasn't been out that long though. You guys were still really struggling to score even when he was playing.
But when he was healthy, we had either a banged up Wilson or a banged up Isak, and the other one was hurt, like out hurt. So we just didn't have a consistent.
So you just want
we haven't we haven't had a full, front seven or front six that's been healthy and together playing at the same time since before the World Cup.
Yeah. Counterpoint
Bruno
though. Counterpoint. I think that's just normal. Like that's what all teams
absolutely, and that's where our depth has been a concern. And I said that going into January that if we really want to make a push at Champions League, we got to shore up some depth, and we didn't really do that at all. Letting
anything
Shelby
you
go,
offloaded,
and now we have midfield questions. I think as I've said numerous times, ownership is extremely patient and not making a push to do this too big, too fast. And I think they would be completely content with Europa at this point.
Does that frustrate you though?
January. No.
Like if y'all were sitting, y'all were sitting 7th going into the window and you're like, okay, we could push for 4th and then you overspend. I would feel a lot different in that way than, okay, you're sitting 4th.
You're sitting there.
Yeah. Like you're already there,
Yeah, we knew though that our biggest issue, as you said, has been goal scoring, and we in the last 7-8 months have spent over 120,000 or 120 million, I should say, on forward progressing players. So like we kind of did the best we could with that. Defense hasn't been our problem.
Yeah.
Midfield depth is where we would have spent, but I don't think that fixes goal scoring issues necessarily, because we really needed like a James Madison or something. And I don't think that was really going to come in January. We were going to have to buy bench players, not guys that would jump in the starting lineup, better us up front, and improve our depth by dropping guys to the bench. So I don't really have a problem with how we've gone about it. It's frustrating seeing it kind of start to nip us in the bud a little bit right here, right after the window closes.
Yeah.
But I'm trusting the process. I have been really happy with the way everything has been handled so far. And I think even a conference league, like that's not what I want, but even a conference league is a step in the right direction, learning how to play those midweek European competitions. And for a club that's building and progressing is still progress for me. It's watching games is frustrating, but as far as mindset and building strategy, I totally get it.
Yeah. Be careful what you wish for with Conference League. I totally get what you're saying, but that can be just a terrible competition. So I think y'all would do well to experience Europa League and learn how to do it through playing solid competition, but also you'll be too good for Conference League,
Yeah.
All right, with Tottenham, I mean it's the same thing every week, right? Like who knows? You lose a midweek game, it probably outplay AC Milan. For the most part, but I mean that just means so little in soccer, which I'm looking at my bullet points here. We actually skipped a couple things on Arsenal and City and Pep's absolute masterclass over Arteta. I mean, Arteta looked like an absolute little boy fool in that game. They gave City gave Arsenal like 65% possession or something like that. Anyways, with Tottenham, they're almost not what we're talking about because you just don't know what you're going to get. Playing with a really young midfield now, Bentancur's out for the year, who is probably like their best player if you take out Harry Kane. I mean, the most important player, I would say.
Yeah.
Outside of Harry Kane, is really the guy that makes that that midfield go. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg is a great player. He's just very inconsistent. Bentancur was just more of a metronome in the midfield. So. Who really knows with Tottenham? Then we look at Fulham, and we mentioned Fulham a little bit. They got another win versus Brighton, so that makes them 2-0 versus Brighton this year. Which we say it all the time: you got to beat your table rivals, and that's exactly what Fulham did versus Brighton this year. So, props to them. They're obviously not your typical newly relegated side. But shout out to Tim Ream being maybe the most informed center back in the Premier League. I've seen a couple media outlets.
I've seen people say in the world.
Yeah, I mean, could
which is like
could be the case. I mean, he had a great World Cup, and he's just been absolutely lights out since Fulham's come back from the international break. So I don't watch Fulham a whole lot. I don't know. I would like to more, but weekends get busy, and I can only consume a couple of games, and a lot of times they play at the same time as Spurs, or right before, right after. So I don't know. I know how Fulham plays. I know they get a lot of those grimy wins, the 1-0, 2-1s, a lot of times with a Mitrovic header or something that he does on the front end, and then they're really sound everywhere else through the pitch. So it's a good team. It's a team I'm glad we don't have to play again this year. Luckily, we were able to finish 2-0 against them. So it's a tough team to face, and if they start getting money with the way that club is run, it really seems like they can be like a Brighton type force for a consistent future.
Yeah, like you said, I'm really glad we got them when we did have Bruno. And like we were still like, that was kind of pretty much our last like really solid performance in the last month or so was that game. Still only a 1-0, but
Newcastle special.
Looking
if it's not a draw.
Metrics wise is what makes me a lot less scared about them. Like we're talking about, we're having goal scoring issues. We're sitting on the same number of goals for, and we have half as many goals against.
Yeah.
So
those grimy wins, they're never looking impressive.
Metrically, we should be clear of them, and Liverpool and Brighton might worry me a little bit more. But it's one of those things that it's really tough to argue results.
Yeah.
They've put together really good matches against really solid teams. Like you said, they're beating everybody below them, but they're also looking solid against teams above them. Like I think I think you guys only probably had a 2-goal differential on them. They only lost to Arsenal by 1. They drew Liverpool, albeit the very first match day, but like they're also playing good against, the big six, if you will. So I don't want to completely discount them and say they're just beating up on the little guys, but they're doing what you need to do and getting 3 points against them.
Yeah.
And that's what does worry me, is Newcastle hasn't always been doing that. We are draw artists extraordinaire, and that can come to bite you. That can come to bite you, and I think it's starting to a little bit.
Yeah.
So
you'll have the least amount of losses in the league.
Yeah. Yep. Still the least amount of losses. There's only one team that's beat us in the Premier League. We've played 19 other teams or 18 other teams, and they've been unable to beat us. There's been one team we've lost to in all the Premier League all season. So when you look at it that way, it's like we've had an unreal season.
Yeah.
But we're just drawing everybody, and it can come to bite you at a certain point. So that's the flip side. Goal differential wise, feel really comfortable at Fulham, but they're taking care of business and getting wins as opposed to getting draws. That we're getting. So we'll see how it shakes down, but. I'm glad we got our 2 out of the way against them, because they're a team that, like you said, just kind of grinds it out and can steal a point here and there from you.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned goal differential. It's kind of something you never think will come into play, but it probably does more often than you would think in the Premier League. I think fourth place could come down to goal differential this year, which y'all are just about double us. So it does matter. And, you'd rather win those 2-0 games than win those 4-3 games. Like it seems like we do a lot, or lose 3-0 and then win 3-0, and just that inconsistency. So let's kind of skip that, the 8 through
skip the
14.
Middle ground that isn't important, like the Chelseas and the
Liverpools.
Yeah, Liverpool scares me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm getting a little worried about Liverpool coming. And we talked about this a while ago. Who are we more worried about coming up? And I was like, it's got to be Chelsea, because Liverpool was on awful form.
Yeah.
And Chelsea just spent all this money, but Chelsea's out here just dropping every other game, it seems like, to teams they shouldn't be dropping games to, i.e. Southampton, who is like the foregone conclusion relegated team a week ago. And now it's like, they might be able to crawl out of there, because they're only, I think, 3 points out or 3 points into the relegation zone.
Yep.
So that was a massive win for them and a horrible loss for Chelsea.
Yeah, Chelsea sitting on a 0 goal differential. So That's pretty wild. Dylan, I think there's 6 teams that could get relegated this year. I have Leicester out of that group just because I think they kept Madison. I just think they're too good. Like, they looked really good in the first half versus United. Absolutely outplayed them, and then just they got the pulp beat out of them in the second half. But that was just a Ten Hag second half masterclass. I got Wolves, Everton, Bournemouth, West Ham, Leeds, and Southampton. If you look at those teams, Everton and Leeds have like switched spots in my mind over the past 2 weeks, and it's really unfortunate. Everton. That
was a massive, massive game.
It was,
last weekend.
It was
massive game.
For those of you who don't know, Everton beat Leeds 1-0 on the weekend. I don't know. We're obviously pseudo Leeds fans, and neither of us particularly enjoy Everton, but it's kind of one of those things. Like, it's kind of like what y'all are doing also. Leeds is just, when they are getting results, they're draws, so they're not maximizing their points. And then when you lose, it just hurts that much worse. I mean, Everton's got 2 wins in their last 5. They both have the same amount of losses in their last 5, but Everton has 2 wins and Leeds has 2 draws. So there's that huge difference in what those 2 results, although they might feel not the same, but to relegation teams, like a draw and a win both feels like a win. But when they're, you're looking up at the table at Everton, who's winning those games right now, it's got to be tough to see. And then West Ham, man, I would have said they are too good to finish in relegation zone, but they look, we're their Super Bowl every year. Like, they hate Tottenham, and they play up for that game every time we come there or they come here, and they just did not look good against us, and they haven't looked good really any time I've watched them this year.
They can't score, man. Like, people make fun of Chelsea. Watching West Ham is twice as hard.
Yeah.
It's brutal to watch.
Yep.
They're in big trouble, I think.
Yeah.
I think Leeds is, I don't want to say relegated. They're only 2 points deep right now into it, but you look at their schedule in April and May, they play Arsenal, Liverpool, City, Newcastle, Spurs. Like, there's not a lot of points to be had in the second half of their
stuff,
or the last third of their schedule. They have a big one against West Ham, second to last weekend, but it's going to be it's going to be tough for them to stay up.
Yeah.
Their whole manager situation is wild. Like, they canned Jesse, and now it's like they don't seem to have a plan for who they're bringing in. Like, they kind of shot themselves in the foot. You can say what you will about Jesse's performance, but they seem to have shot themselves in the foot with this extra long limbo manager time that they're going through. And I don't think that's what you need when your team's fighting relegation.
Yeah, it's been a really weird situation with Leeds, and that's a club that's won a lot of games in the past. It's a huge club as far as fan base goes, passionate fans, and it's just weird that they just seem to be floundering, like, organizational wise. So I don't know if, with these soccer teams, a lot of times you get owners that just kind of check out and they're like, okay, I'll put them on the market at the end of the year or whatever. I don't know. Leeds ownership structure just feels like they have higher ups that just don't know what they're doing or don't care. So that would be frustrating to me if I was
letting Jesse do all the business he did in January and then canning him after one game is like, it's just weird. And doing it and then taking 20 some odd days to fill the position. It's like, it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. I think I would put them as my relegation favorites right now. And I know that's not going out on a huge limb, but we've been pretty down on Southampton. I'm not saying that because the Chelsea win necessarily, because Chelsea is reeling right now. They're just not looking good in league. So I'm not putting too much weight into that, but that's just how concerned I am about Leeds and their ability to play any sort of defense and have any organization under a temporary manager and then maybe a new manager in 2 weeks. Like, they're in trouble. And then all those American lads need to get the heck out of there. I think Aronson should probably stay and stick it out, but the other two should find better homes.
Yeah, I think ultimately you're going to have 4 teams for those last two safe spots and the first 2 relegation spots. I think It'll probably come down to Everton, Bournemouth, West Ham, and Leeds. I think Wolves will stay up. I just think they've looked good in too many games, kind of like Leicester, very similar. And there's just too much talent there, and I think that the new players they've signed, along with their new coach that they've gotten, I think they got a new coach at some point this season. I don't think the same guy's been there all year.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're looking better, although they just dropped on the weekend. But before that, coming off 2 wins.
They're one of 4 teams in the league in the last 5 that have 3 wins.
Yeah.
So it was a disappointment to drop one against Bournemouth, but overall, big picture, they're still in a pretty good spot and have been playing well. And one of those wins was they've beaten Liverpool twice this calendar year already.
Wow.
They've beaten relegation rivals in West Ham and Southampton this calendar year. So I feel pretty confident Wolves is going to be okay. They've started to find ways to score goals since the window. They spent some money in the window on attacking players, and it's starting to pay off because goal scoring was our biggest question mark on them for the longest time.
Yep. All right. Relegation prediction. Who do you have after this week?
Leeds, West Ham, and Southampton, I guess.
So chalk.
I can't not. No, but in that order, I think Southampton is going to finish in the 18th spot there.
I think Bournemouth and West Ham will flip. I'm going to go Bournemouth, Leeds, and Southampton. Top 4. What do you have?
I have it as it stands now.
As it stands.
Arsenal, City, United, Spurs.
I think I do too. I think I might also.
And I have Liverpool in Europa.
Okay.
We're going to play Conference League.
All right.
I can just feel it.
I'm excited for,
and I don't
excited for that.
I mean, if we don't play any European at all, that's when I'll get frustrated. I know you say you shouldn't want Conference League, don't get excited. I wouldn't be excited about it, but it's still like a stepping stone.
Yeah, I mean, if I were you, I'd take it over nothing.
Out,
but I would
fully missing out will stress me out beyond belief about our future. But yeah, I think Liverpool is going to get on a very hot streak here and finish in that Europa League. I would love if we could beat United this weekend and automatically have a European competition of some sort in our back pocket. You get that automatic, it's just Conference League, but you get that automatic qualifier.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. I would love having that peace of mind the rest of the season that we got something.
Yeah.
But I don't really like our chances to do that this weekend.
You feel less and less confident every day.
It could get ugly. I mean, we're going to we have to play our 4th choice keeper.
Oh,
because Pope got a red. Dubravka can't play because he played.
But is Pope out for? Is it all of FA competitions?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, Bruno's red was in the semifinals of the EFL, but he'll be back.
But he's can't play
back for this game. Yeah, he can play. Bruno can play that.
He can.
Weekend. Yeah, he can because he served his 3-game English football suspension, and now Pope. Right, literally the game we get Bruno back, Pope gets a 3-game suspension.
Oh yeah,
and Dubravka, who we brought back because we wanted him as our backup, can't play because we're playing United. So
rough,
fun stuff.
Well,
first chance at a trophy in 20 years and 25 years. And
it's all on about as bad as possible.
Yeah.
Well, that's been this episode of the Planet Soccer Podcast. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, I guess, Leeds fans, if you got concerns, send them to our inbox, and we'll try to sort it out with you guys. Yeah, that's it. We're heading into the back third here shortly of the Premier League season. We've got all European competitions back. And Soccer Simplified is in the process of being recorded. So lots of things happening here on the channel. As always, we appreciate you guys listening. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe, share, comment, duet, and stitch.
I think you got them all that time.
I think so. We'll talk to y'all next time.